A big break 2 races ago for Bryson Neal puts him way ahead in points for the Grand National Cross Country Championship ATV title. Today, he goes head-to-head with Walker Fowler and the rest of the field to try and maintain a points lead and stretch it out for the 2022 championship. Snowshoe GNCC is next.
Are you ready to go? GNCC Racing!
Hello and welcome to America's Premier Off-Road Racing Championship, the 2022 GNCC Series presented by Specialized, an AM8 National Championship. I'm Rodney Tomlin, and today we come to you from Snowshoe Mountain Resort in Snowshoe, West Virginia for the Snowshoe GNCC. And of course, 2 weeks ago, we were in the hills of Pennsylvania as we were running the Mason-Dixon GNCC right there on the state line of Pennsylvania and West Virginia. And what a day and what a start for the young number 2 of Hunter Hart, nearly grabbing the early lead on this one, but it was Walker Fowler out front early on, and the new points leader from just a race before, Bryson Neal, buried a little further back in the pack, trying to play catch-up, but still well within striking distance early on in this one. Hunter Hart able to take over the lead with Walker Fowler dropping to the number 2 spot. They swapped back and forth on several different occasions just through the first portion of this race. And lo and behold, just what every race fan would hope for, Bryson Neal able to reel them in and put the challenge on both. And then a slight mistake by Hunter Hart drops him back, and the number 1 and the 241 go at it. Bryson Neal capturing the lead for a little while, and then, of course, he had some issues in the pits with a long pit stop. He gave the lead back to Walker Fowler, and then Walker Fowler has this little miscue in the pits as he hits a rock and high sides later in the race, then puts his head down and begins to lay chase to Bryson Neal once again in hopes of, if nothing else, salvaging as many of the championship points as he can, and if possible, to get around and try to gain some of those points he lost back. But Bryson Neal not going to be denied on this day as he has his head down and charging, and Walker Fowler, his head down and charging. Everyone wondered, would it be enough? Would he be able to reel in Bryson Neal? And if so, what kind of statement would that make heading into the break? With one more race to go from this one at Snowshoe Mountain Resort, Walker Fowler really wanting to leave a taste in the mouth of Bryson Neal and something for him to think about 2 races in a row. But it would be this in the end. Bryson Neal able to hang on to the number 1 spot to take yet another win and extend his points lead in this 2022 Grand National Cross Country Championship.
Oh man, I tell you what, today was tough. You know, the track was, it was awesome. The track had such a good flow. That was one of the best races we've had in so long. But man, whenever I gave up the lead, whenever we made the pit stop, I stalled my bike in the pits when I took my goggles off, and my dad was fueling me, and that was just enough to lose the lead. And that I was like, man, that could have been the pass for the race, you know, for the win, because I knew it was tough to pass. We was trying to force the issue in the fields, and we was battling back and forth and having some really good fun. Everyone was riding good today, but we came around that last lap of the pit section, and I never expected him to take a tumble and go down pro row like that. I'm glad he's okay. You know, I heard Jared McClure, he crashed out, he broke his collarbone. I'm absolutely gutted for him. I mean, he's a hard-looking dude. He puts it all in his sport, and he loves racing. So I hate to hear that he broke his collarbone. He won't be with us at Snowshoe. Hopefully he'll be back with us the last 4 rounds. But man, 5 in a row. Just super pumped. Today was awesome. The fans were awesome. The Moroccos were awesome. I loved everything. The track, the bike, the suspension, the CST tires, Zoka shocks. Everything was clicking. I felt great, and we're ready for Snowshoe, I guess, now.
Well, Snowshoe's going to be an interesting one to say the least, but Bryson Neal on top of this one, Walker Fowler in second, Devin Feehan in third, Cole Richardson in fourth, Hunter Hart rounding out your top 5, and extending the points lead just a little bit there for Bryson Neal as we head to Snowshoe Mountain Resort, an 11.5-mile course, starting on pavement, giving homage to the old Blackwater 100, which we'll talk a little bit about in a few moments. Right now, for opening ceremonies, enjoying the sounds of the West Virginia University Drum Corps. But then shortly after that took place, the rain started falling, and racing action was certainly going to be a little bit different than what folks had anticipated. As the 10-second call was made, the revs went up on this live engine start, starting in rows of 5, about 5 to 10 seconds apart, and our front 5 riders, the front 5 riders in points, and it is the number 2 of Hunter Hart who was going to grab the early lead. We saw John Glotta Jr., we saw Devin Feehan, we saw Bryson Neal and Walker Fowler along with Hunter Hart there on row number 1. So those were our top 5 in points starting on this day, and here they come down the hill. Back in 4th place there was Walker Fowler behind Hunter Hart, Devin Feehan, and John Glotta Jr. Adam McGill checking in there, and he's saying that Bryson Neal is hurt back there, so our cameraman radioing that in. We'll get you an update coming up in just a few moments, though. Right now, it is the number 2 of Hunter Hart. He is still leading the young guns of Devin Feehan and John Glotta Jr., along with the number 1 of Walker Fowler back there. As we told you, the conditions are a little different. We're seeing some sunshine down here on this part of the mountain, and that's the wild thing about racing in the mountains of West Virginia. One side of the mountain, it may be raining, and it may be sunny on the other side of the mountain or the top of the mountain, or depends on what elevation, what side of the mountain you're on. Right now, we've seen rain has come through here. We see it's a little sloppy and messy, but it's not like it was at the top of the mountain where the rains were pouring down. I'm sure, however, it's going to have its effects on this race course, as this part of the track actually looks a little bit drier than some of the other parts of the racetrack that we have bared witness to. Now, you're seeing some green number backgrounds coming through, and you're saying, hey, those are XC2 riders, and yes, you are correct. Those are XC2 Pro-Am riders, but if they are in the top 20 overall, they will start on one of the front 4 rows, and that's the way they started today in accordance to points. Top 5, 1st through 5th on row 1, and it's 6th through 10th on row 2. That was all the way back through the top 20 in the overall, and then it went class by class at that particular point. So any Pro or XC2 riders that weren't in the top 20 for whatever reason would then be starting on those lines 5 on back, and in the rest of the fields. But now that we explained that a little bit, time adjustments is another thing. Starting anywhere from 5 to 10 seconds, the start rows are adjusted on time, so you don't even actually have to make a pass on an individual sometimes. If you're running a faster lap time, you still may be in the time in the overall adjusted lead with adjusted timing. So it's a rather different way of looking at the racing sometimes, and especially if you're coming up from behind, it can be, well, nice to know that you don't have to pass somebody to technically beat them whenever you start looking at the clock like that. And traditionally, GNCC is like that a lot with the class-by-class breakdown, but rarely is it like that within the class. And here it is today. But like we say, Snowshoe's a little different, just like, well, kind of like our good friends used to do it back at the Blackwater 100. We got more coming on MAV TV. Stick around. Coverage of the Grand National Cross Country Championship on MAV TV is brought to you in part by Specialized E-Turbo Bikes. It's you, only faster. And by RockyMountainATVMC.com. Get ready. Welcome back to GNCC on MAV TV, where Hunter Hart continues to lead, and we found more rain and more water and more mud. Hart leading Devin Feehan still back in the number 2 spot. John Glotta Jr. in 3rd, Walker Fowler in 4th, and as we told you, we had reports of the 241 of Bryson Neal. This is Howard's Hole, by the way, and as we told you, we had reports. There's a 733 of Cole Richardson working his way through the Howard's Hole portion of this race course. But again, going back to the 241, and Bryson Neal crashed on the ski slopes right off the start, we're being told, and his bike has been destroyed. He is okay, but the bike is not. The confetti flies at Howard's Hole in the deep part as the fans are celebrating the arrival of GNCC here through the rocks, mud, and water of the base of this mountain right now. And I tell you, it's almost like a rock concert down there with the amount of folks there. There is Adam McGill trying to get through those race fans, and race fans are certainly going to try to help you on through. Chris Borett's going to take a whole different line than everyone else did, as there's two different ways through. The fans leaving those lines open, but not many lines are available through Howard's Hole just simply because the number of folks down there. Literally thousands of people at Howard's Hole waiting and watching these riders go through. It's still Hunter Hart out front in this one physically on the racetrack. And it's going to be fun to watch and see how this one unfolds. Now, this is going to be a big break. As we told you, Bryson Neal is out. He gained about 30 points or so with Walker Fowler's mishap a couple of rounds ago at the John Penton GNCC. Now it's kind of tit for tat, and at the end of this day, depending on how things finish, Walker Fowler could come out, maybe not necessarily on top of the points, but he could come out shaving a lot of the points lead away and coming to maybe within close to 10 points of Bryson Neal in that championship points race, which would, through the summer, give Bryson Neal a whole lot to think about. And those final 4 races in the push for the championship could get very interesting and may swing in the favor of Walker Fowler if he can just get that momentum swinging here today and get inside the mind of Bryson Neal. Of course, a couple of months away, we'll answer that question, and a little time today will answer part of that question as well as to what position will Walker Fowler be able to finish in. I know a lot of folks are expecting it to be first place, and it wouldn't be a surprise to see that happen, but with the way that we've seen some of these youngsters racing lately, not a surprise to see someone else new win either. Hunter Hart's already got a win or 2 under his belt. He is looking for more of those, and these guys race a lot in the offseason, so he gains a lot of confidence during that time. He's had some great finishes already this season, and he is really riding high on a wave of confidence here in West Virginia today. So we'll see if Hunter Hart's able to maintain this lead. As you look back, he's still got the shadows right behind him in second and third of John Glotta. And now Walker Fowler up to second. John Glotta Jr. dropping back to fourth. Devin Feehan in third place position. And there is Glotta Jr. as our front 4 really still nose to tail. And this is another thing that we don't see a whole lot of, but a different rider keeping the pace up front, plus conditions very different here in the mountains of West Virginia. And that is Cole Richardson there. He's not far off the pace of those. Now, he finished or started a couple of rows back, so with that being said, his time adjustments actually puts him a little closer ahead than you realize. Junior trail boss and trail sweep Jared Bolton, a.k.a. Bolton, making his way by the camera crew there. There's Hunter Hart making his way up the hill climb now, and you see 2 different lines there, kind of a split line scenario there, and the leader's going up what I would consider the left side of the line, and it looks like Walker Fowler was able to make a pass somewhere out there on Hunter Hart, as we now got a new leader. And look at this, Cole Richardson has blasted through the pack and all the way up to a third place position. We saw him closing on the pack on the other side of the mountain there just a little bit ago, but now he has really caught the pack and he has put himself into not only contention for a podium, but he's not far off the pace for a possibility of a win today. And again, start taking into account and consideration some time adjustments. So as this race wears on, gets closer to the end, that might and could be a factor as far as the overall is concerned here today in Snowshoe, West Virginia. Going over the bridge there, getting a little rough trying to get across, but that is the best and safest way across for everyone. And now down here at, I don't know, yeah, this is the pro pits. So riders starting out on pavement, their pro pits are on pavement as well. They come right out of the dirt, out of a hill climb. And now you see that Walker Fowler going to make a quick pit stop. So he's about halfway through this race. You see that we've seen sunshine, we've seen rain, and we've seen mud. So there's a little bit of everything that has been thrown at these riders, including rocks and steep elevations. And this one's not over yet, my friends. Walker Fowler looking to capture the points he lost only 2 rounds ago. Thankfully, the 241, Bryson Neal is healthy. However, his machine is not. Of course, we have the EMTB GNCC is a part of the Grand National Cross Country Championship, as many of these specialized electric mountain bikes take to the trails here in West Virginia. And a year ago is where we saw a big turnaround in the competition as far as who was going to be challenging for championships. And Charlie Mullins, your defending champion, then all of a sudden started finding a whole lot of competition from guys like that right there. Nick Mackey, Cypress Gorey, and many more. And Nick Mackey actually having the lead in this one with fingers crossed and nails being bitten. It was the number 2 able to pull through and take the win over Charlie Mullins as Nick Mackey took the win at Snowshoe Mountain EMTB GNCC portion of our GNCC racing. And you see knuckles to each other and a big win for Nick Mackey. Coverage of the Grand National Cross Country Championship on MAV TV is brought to you in part by Specialized E-Turbo Bikes. It's you, only faster. And by RockyMountainATVMC.com. Get ready. Welcome back to MAV TV's coverage of the Grand National Cross Country Championship from Snowshoe, West Virginia. And as always, at the GNCC, Saturday nights are family nights in our nation. And all these young youth coming out and being a part of all the great things, saying the Pledge of Allegiance before the start of the race that night. And, of course, Ricky Tower right on hand to give these kids the green flag. And a makeshift course here on Snowshoe Mountain. They, too, started on the pavement this night, and they raced on the pavement as well. Big special thanks to our friends at KTM Sports Cycles and, of course, Stasic Stability Cycles for bringing this racing action to it. You see that 989? You recognize the name Duval? Well, that's Jacoby Duval, the son of Thad Duval, as a third-generation GNCC racer is in the making here at Snowshoe GNCC, getting it started as these new kids are on the Stasic Stability Cycles. There is one of the biggest kids of them all, Stu Baylor, as he rolls out on his Stasic Stability Cycle as well. And you can see these machines actually are rather stable machines. If they can carry that guy around, they can carry most anybody around, and they're going to hold up to it all. Look at those faces, those babies. I'll tell you, they've got the heart of tigers. There's no doubt about it. They all love to race. Walker Fowler out front in this one now, and he is starting to stretch it out. The rains have gone away, it looks like, and the sunshine back, but as we said earlier, the water that fell definitely left its mark. And at the bottom of the mountain, there's second place now, Cole Richardson. The bottom of the mountain is where all that water runs to, so lower lying areas are going to see a little more sloppy conditions, and we're going to see these riders coming out here in the closing portions of this race. Probably machines a little bit more dirty, and as will their tire be a lot more dirty. Heading into Howard's Hole once again. This is kind of the beginning of Howard's Hole, and if you know much about it, you can see there's a lot of rocks. It gets wet. There's a lot of people here, but the deeper you get into this, the thicker the crowd gets as well. And some of other areas out here, as we see Walker Fowler's made his way in, and there just goes to show you, trying to get up into some of those ski slopes. These are off some of the ski slopes there, and they're making that drive from one area to another, and you can see the rocks are tough, the elevation and the steepness itself rather challenging for these ATV racers. As we pick the action a little further down the trail, and it's still Walker Fowler out front. Got some lap traffic just ahead of him, but that's not going to slow him down much, it doesn't appear. Coltrane Cole Richardson, last we saw, was in the number 2 spot, but ooh, look at this, that's Jay Shadron. And he started on one of the front rows, so we'll see how time adjustment sets it up for him. But here comes Walker Fowler into the closing turns here at Snowshoe Mountain Resort, and he will take the win. Win number 72 for Walker Fowler as he inches one step closer to being the winningest GNCC racer of all times, and also chips a few of those championship points away that Bryson Neal was able to gain after his mishaps only a couple of rounds ago. We're back to near even as far as the championship battle is concerned, and we're heading into the summer break. A great wave of confidence for the Yamaha Blue Crew rider to be riding upon heading into this portion of his career. It couldn't be a better day than what it is right now for Walker Fowler. You can see right now the look in his eyes, the relief that he feels, and of course the excitement that he has for the win.
I think we're the winningest pro racer in history here at the mountain. So a race as coveted is the Blackwater 100. All the guys that race that, man, just kind of makes you think back to the Bob Sloan, Ted Trey, Tom Tokay days, and it's so awesome to win this. I'm, you know, like I said, I'm gutted for Bryson. You don't want to see that happen, but the score is even now, and we're down 11 points, and the fans are going to get to see the battle that they deserve to see. I needed this. You just, you start to get a little down on yourself. You start to wonder what you're doing wrong, and I've been telling everybody's like, well, is he that much faster? He might be. He's pretty darn good. And, you know, it's like, what's wrong? And honestly, it was just a bunch of silly stuff. I kept just little mistakes, and we weren't putting a good race together. And, man, we don't go a mile today, and Bryson smoked a tree. I mean, he got up, and I kind of looked back, and he was getting back on the bike, and just like, man, that have broke normal people in half. I can't believe that we're going to get an hour tow, and he's going to already be back on my rear tires, and then it ended up being Richardson. And I got into Howard Toll, and, man, everyone wanted to stand in front of me. Everywhere I went, I ran 2 or 3 people over. I'm really sorry, but I was revving, I was yelling, but there's so much chaos down there. People turn their back, and like you said, one little bobble, and they slip, and you're pretty soon you're running people over, and they didn't look too happy. So like I said, I'm sorry, but man, it was nuts down there. The Mud Fleas came in clutch when I needed them. I love you guys. I love West Virginia. Thank you so much. It's so awesome to be the king of the mountain, guys.
Wow, what a day there for Walker Fowler. The big turnaround and another big win in Snowshoe and making the winningest racer on the mountain, and that's pretty cool. We'll take a look at that race recap brought to you by your friends at Specialized. As you see, it was Hunter Hart getting off to a great start there, getting nearly pinched off, and all the way back in dead last, I believe, was the 241 of Bryson Neal. And a little further down the trail, it wasn't long before we recognized and heard that Bryson Neal had already had some trouble. We've seen a front 4 coming through with Feehan, John Glotta Jr. 4th place was Walker Fowler, and then shortly after that we saw the 521 of Adam McGill checking in. He says, hey, Bryson Neal hurt back the trail there, so a lot of folks heading in that direction, and coming to find out he had slammed a tree. And then this party got underway down at Howard's Hole with thousands of folks and the confetti flying, and of course the racing action heating up through there. That has to be a great charge for these riders, but a challenge as well because the line choice is very limited for these riders. Adam McGill nearly being pointed in one direction, but check this out. An old wily veteran himself, the number 9 of Chris Boris, decides he wants to take an alternate line, which actually probably seemed to work out pretty good. And not sure how it fared for him the rest of the day, but little crafty moves like that could put you right back where you need to be. As the race wore on, it was pretty evident that Hunter Hart came today to race. He wanted to win, and he rode just exactly like that. And he put his head down, and he made it tough for everyone, including Walker Fowler, who was able to finally move himself into the number 1 position around Hunter Hart. And once he did that, just started to try to push things away. He knew that he was going to gain some big points here, but as much as anything, he knew he was having a great ride that day, so he was enjoying every moment as he took the win. On win number 72, inching one step closer to that 75 mark held on to by Chris Borich. And of course, with that being said, that brings us to the summer break. And of course, Jay Shadron landing on the podium along with Cole Richardson. Richardson second, Shadron in third. And the summer break leaves a lot of things to think about for everyone. And we'll be back with more right here on MAV TV. Be looking.